the annals of WWE history, fewer stars have had the type of run that John Cena has enjoyed. The man carried the company for years and remained in a top position for longer than just about everyone ever has, and maybe ever will. It was only when Hollywood came calling and age and injuries caught up to him that Cena finally began reducing his insane schedule. Before becoming the toast of Tinseltown, Cena was a force of nature in WWE, winning everything possible and beating anyone and everyone as he put smiles on faces and sold about 50 million t-shirts and wristbands. Yes, nobody was safe from Cena, who would invariably put their ass down for the 3-second tan, whether they were an even bigger movie star, a UFC champion, or the man who will one day inherit the company. The heavy emphasis on Cena bred resentment, with sarcastic cries of "Cena wins lol," and some fans even threatening to riot if he got his hand raised at the end of a match. But Cena has done the honors for others, and not just the Hall of Fame crowd either. Looking back at his illustrious career, you might be surprised at some of the names that have handed him a rare defeat. I'm Sam Driver from Cultaholic.com, and these are 10 shocking wrestlers that beat John Cena. Join us! Number 10, Wade Barrett, Hell in a Cell 2010. Look, I might as well take the opportunity early in this video to do my weekly whinge about John Cena steamrolling the Nexus at SummerSlam 2010. It was, as history has shown us, the wrong move which almost killed dead a red-hot storyline. Almost. Because while we all tend to focus on Super Cena no-selling a DDT on concrete before putting away Justin Gabriel and group leader Wade Barrett with ease, we tend to forget that the feud was far from settled and that John Boy continued battling the lads in black and yellow in the following weeks and months. That included a singles match with Barrett at Hell in a Cell, with the stipulation that if Wade lost, the Nexus would disband, but if Cena lost, he would have to join up with the pack of renegade rookies. It was quite the sports entertainment spectacle, with a big brawl between the Nexus and members of the WWE locker room being a highlight. Going back and forth with the face of the company, Barrett looked like he belonged at the top level, something that was bullhammered home when he scored the pin over Cena, thanks of course to interference from NXT competitors Husky Harris and Michael McGillicuddy masquerading as fans. The shocked expressions of the C-Nation members said it all. Number 9, the Great Khali. As Cena began to firmly establish himself as the man, the Boo Boys and naysayers would repeatedly attack him for his apparent lack of wrestling ability. I mean, sure, if you ignore all of the consistently great entertaining matches against a wide variety of opponents, then okay, I guess Cena couldn't wrestle. I mean, come on! This is the bloke that got 2 not only watchable but actively decent matches out of the Great Khali, for goodness sake. Big Match John won their 2 pay-per-view meetings at Judgment Day and One Night Stand 2007, triumphing in the former by submission, though Khali's massive foot was under the rope, and by FUing him off a crane in the latter. Naturally. What most don't remember though is that the Punjabi Playboy got one over on Cena the night before One Night Stand when they met in a non-title match on Saturday night's main event. I'm not sure how smart giving away the main event of your pay-per-view is 24 hours before it takes place on free television, no less, but the manner of the match and the result must have got people talking, if not ordering. A total squash this one was, as Khali gobbled Cena up and pinned him clean with 1 foot on his chest in around 6 minutes. Number 8, John Laurenitis. Don't let the mannequin smile and $10 haircut fool you. Back in his day, John Laurenitis was a hell of a wrestler. After his spell as a neon-coated skateboard-riding dynamic dude, Laurenitis found great success in the land of the rising sun as a member of the All Japan roster. Bending bones with the likes of Kenta Kobashi and Mitsuharu Misawa, Laurenitis, as Johnny Ace, was one of the top gaijin in the country. He hung up his boots in 2000 and transitioned into a backstage executive role, but came out of retirement in 2012 when presiding as Raw General Manager. Laurenitis took on John Cena in the bizarre main event of Over the Limit, where the stipulation entailed that if Big Johnny lost, he'd be fired, and if anyone interfered in the match, they would be fired as well. A comedic outing that consisted of Cena basically torturing and humiliating the executive for 15 minutes, it came to a merciful end when the recently fired Big Show prevented Ace from fleeing and threw him back into the ring. And if you were unable to see where this one's going, may I suggest buying, borrowing, or stealing a copy of Sports Entertainment for Dummies. The world's largest athlete turned, of course, belting Cena in his granite jaw and handing Daniel Bryan's father-in-law the victory. Number 7, R-Truth. Remember the June 27th, 2011 episode of Raw? Of course you do, because it was the one that ended on CM Punk's infamous pipe bomb promo. The wrestling world was abuzz following the Straight Edge Superstars insider reference-laden rant, with those online speculating whether it was a work or a shoot, or a worked shoot if CM Punk was leaving to go somewhere else, and so on and so forth. It's fair to say that it overshadowed the main event match from that evening, which saw WWE Champion John Cena take on R-Truth in a non-title tables match. Truth had failed to upset Cena 8 days previously in the main event of Capital Punishment, but he was successful here thanks to a timely assist from the Second City Saint. Following Punk's interference, Truth was able to spear his opponent through the wood for the win. It should have been a big victory and talking point since he'd just gotten a W over the WWE Champion in the main event of Raw no less, but obviously the post-match scene is all anyone could think about when the show went off the air. On a side note, tables matches are clearly not Cena's forte since he failed in his previous 2 tables matches against Sheamus and Randy Orton. Worst Dudley boy ever. Number 6. Carlito. Before becoming a perennial heavyweight champion, Cena was attempting to freestyle his way out of the chasing pack, his white rapper gimmick pushing him up the card and to United States title glory. As his stock rose and popularity grew, it became clear to everyone that Cena was going to be a big deal, a fact that was confirmed when Mr. Hustle, Loyalty and Respect was cast as the lead in WWE Studios' feature film, The Marine. With Cena due on set, WWE had to get the US title off him and used the opportunity to put over a debuting Carlito strong. Caribbean Cool's arrival had been hyped for weeks with some awesome vignettes, and in his first match as a SmackDown superstar, he pinned Cena after clocking him with that big padlock chain that John wore during his entrance. If irony were made out of strawberries, Cena would be drinking a big old smoothie right there. Even though Cena wasn't quite the invincible superhero he'd become in the years after, it was still somewhat shocking to see him lose like this, especially to an unknown entity. To fully write him off television while he played movie star, WWE concocted a storyline where he was stabbed in a nightclub by Carlito's bodyguard Jesus. That led in the end to Cena getting a win over Jesus at Armageddon, which I think personally is quite funny. Number 5. Orlando Jordan? As Cena was gearing up for a WrestleMania showdown with WWE champion John Bradshaw Layfield in 2005, he had a few run-ins with the Texans' frankly pathetic stable, The Cabinet. Before getting his hands on JBL at the Showcase of the Immortals, Cena spent weeks clashing with the Bashams and Orlando Jordan. He was still the US champion at this time, and with the almost certain inevitability that he was going over JBL at Mania, it was apparent that he had to lose his title before he could win the big one. The honor went to Jordan, someone who had spun his wheels for an age before joining up with the former acolyte. He faced off against Cena in the main event of SmackDown, and it was a classic Orlando Jordan performance. Classic in the sense that it definitely happened, and I couldn't remember a single distinguishable thing about it other than he actually unbelievably won. It obviously wasn't clean, as Cena saw off interference from both Danny and Doug before Layfield sneakily picked his spot and walloped him with his belt, giving OJ the opportunity to crawl into a cover. This was Orlando's sole WWE title, as he faded into obscurity not too long after, while Cena went on to glory. Number 4. Billy Gunn. When WWE decided to revive the United States Championship as a SmackDown exclusive prize in the summer of 2003, there were many viable contenders entered into the title tournament. Matt Hardy was doing well with his version 1 gimmick, Rikishi was always a popular performer, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit were 2 of the best in the business, Ultimo Dragon was fresh on the scene, and Rhino was not too long back from neck surgery and eager to make an impact. Out of everyone though, John Cena was considered the one to watch. His rapping gimmick was getting over, and he'd recently locked horns with WWE champ Brock Lesnar on pay-per-view after all. It should have been a given that he would breeze past Billy Gunn, who was back to being an ass man and desperately clinging to his Attitude Era credibility. But it was actually the New Age Outlaw who scored what had to be considered an upset at that point, rolling Cena up after he got distracted by The Undertaker, who made a full entrance on his shiny bicycle. The finish to the match was as much about furthering the feud between Cena and Big Evil as it was about putting over Billy Gunn, who lost to Latino Heat in the next round. And I'm sure that John was more than happy exiting the tournament early in order to work with the locker room leader. Number 3. Tenzai. Sometimes a WWE superstar needs a drastic repackage or to just, go away for a while before they can fulfill their true potential. Sometimes they need both, as was the case with Albert/A-Train/Lord Tensai. Matt Bloom had enjoyed a decent amount of success in the tag team TNA and as a hoss on SmackDown, but left WWE in late 2004 as a total non-factor. He resurfaced in Japan, making the country his home for 7 years and enjoying much success during his stay there. WWE were of course watching and offered him a chance to return in 2012. He did so as Tenzai, a new character inspired by his time in Nihon, and quickly made his mark with dominant victories over Alex Riley and Yoshitatsu. The caliber of competition picked up massively in his third Raw bout, where he faced John Cena in an Extreme Rules match. Considering Big Match John was gearing up for Brock Lesnar in less than 2 weeks, you'd think that he'd be booked to win this one. But you'd be wrong, as WWE was seemingly all in on the Tensai push and put the big man over, with some helping interference courtesy of David Otunga and a poison mist. Cena would, of course, weeks later finally end Sweet T's win streak when WWE lost interest in the gimmick. Number 2, Kevin Owens. By 2015, John Cena was a WWE institution, as synonymous with the sports entertainment juggernaut as pretty much anyone in history. His generation's Hulk Hogan, Cena had been on top for an entire decade, and in that time didn't lose very often. If he did, it was usually against an Orton or a Lesnar or someone of that caliber, an established WWE superstar on his level. As he entered the autumn of his career, he started to give back a little more in a bid to elevate the next crop of WWE superstars. This was particularly evident in the US title Open Challenge series, where the likes of Sami Zayn, Neville and Cesaro were afforded the opportunity to take the face that runs the place to the limit. Though perhaps nobody benefited from Cena's generosity more than Kevin Owens. The NXT champion shockingly attacked Cena on Raw before challenging him to a match at Elimination Chamber. Neither title was on the line, but the match had a big fight feel to it and more than delivered. The prizefighter going toe-to-toe with Big Match John and shockingly winning clean as a sheet, 1, 2, 3, right in the middle of the ring. A textbook example of how to make someone in one night, this was nonetheless surprising given both men's standings in the company and what they represented. And number 1, Kevin Federline. If you were around for a very specific moment in the mid-2000s, chances are you might possibly know who the hell Kevin Federline is. A former backup dancer, Federline was famous for his marriage to international pop sensation Britney Spears. He also fancied himself something of a rapper, and in a bid to promote his upcoming album, got into a televised spat with another master of rhymes, John Cena. Now, I'm not sure if K-Fed had ever penned a tune as brilliant as My Time Is Now, but he got the upper hand on Cena when the two clashed on television in late 2006. After costing Cena his match at Cyber Sunday, a bout between the pair was scheduled for the 2007 New Year's Day episode of Raw. And what better way to kick off the year than by having a D-list celebrity beat the top star in the industry. The no disqualification rules should have been a giveaway, but even with a lot of gaga and considerable help from Umaga and Johnny Nitro, Federline's victory was the sort of short-sighted head-scratcher that makes you wonder if the people running this company don't always know exactly what the hell they're doing. My goodness, could you imagine?